Here are 37 useless linguistics facts. The majority language of Nebraska is English. There is currently no evidence of a historical genetic connection between Navajo and Welsh. If you are less than halfway done with your life, all the words you will ever speak could theoretically be palindromic. English does not have a word for pieces of sheep fat wrapped in colored wool. Fortunately, we can borrow the word Tishatwa from the ancient Hittite language if we ever need one. If you collated all the known Chinese literature ever produced into one book, it would be a pretty big book. The Japanese word okiru, which translates to live, has a deeply ingrained cultural component for speakers. The concept of okiru reflects not being dead. Statistically, Noam Chomsky is the linguist of all time. But when discussing who the linguist of all time is in a social context, it's William Labov. Adjectives occur in about 20% of the world's languages, many of which are in mountainous regions. Some linguists theorize this is due to lower air pressure, allowing for easier distinction between adjectives and philharmonic consonants. But placing a bunch of speakers in a low-pressure environment to test for adjective recognition, such as a depressurized Boeing 787 at 12,000 meters, will lead to a different kind of adjective. It's a relatively known trivia fact that U.S. President Martin Van Buren was a native Dutch speaker. But did you know that he also spoke English? If you transliterated modern Greek into the ancient Linear A script, I would be very surprised, as Linear A is undeciphered. The Quechan language is not a Quechuan language. Percussive consonants are produced by one organ striking another, such as the sublingual percussive. So for your next awful conlang, include a sound produced by violent pancreatic movement. Arabic has many words. The estimated range of error for the world's population is 1 to 3%, according to NPR. This means that taking a global population sample instead of a national one, while assuming that minimum 1% range of error, only languages with 8,230,000 speakers or more at the time of writing statistically exist beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm looking at you, Finnish. To date, no naturally occurring language has been discovered with the phonemic implosive obstruent consonant. That's because they're impossible. It's somewhat known that the Proto-Germanic word for soap, saipaz, eventually ended up in Aboriginal Australian languages through the Indian Ocean trade. But did you know that the Proto-Germanic words sidol and awio, meaning broad and island, also ended up in Australia through the Pacific route, ultimately coming to be pronounced as Sydney? Gorillas that are trained in sign language do not show capacity to understand words like deoxyribonucleic acid and check fraud. It's known that the dot above an I and a J is called a tittle, but did you know that the blank space in between the tittle and the rest of the letter also has a name? It's called the blank space in between the tittle and the rest of the letter. The Proto-Indo-European root morpheme that semantically is one of, if not the best preserved roots, is perd, meaning fart. Even roots like mechter, from whence we get mother, semantically shifted in some languages. From what I can tell, every single language where a descendant of perd survives, that word means fart. The word for dog in Babaram, formerly spoken in northern Queensland, was dog. I have a Turkish traditional Chinese dictionary that I got in the back room of a really dinky Taiwanese basement market in Istanbul for 200 taedai. Signage pointed to it being this giant Chinese market, and it was actually just 2 rooms with instant ramen and jasmine rice, and a stack of these next to cans of fish paste with a layer of dust probably older than me. The woman running the register was incredibly confused that this was all I bought, but as a dictionary collector, I simply couldn't resist. There is no lexeme for the semantic concept of all in on red in Proto-Arawakan. Norwegian does not have a word for when you accidentally stub your pinky toe on the coffee table and drop your Nintendo GameCube that you were precariously holding, shattering the disk drive. But if they did, I would imagine it to be something like Fan dette revere en lutefisk. Snake slurp the zaki. Yes, madam, it's certainly set server we fit. Half enough. This is because your brain perceives speech going forwards, not in reverse. You might be unsurprised to learn the geographical distribution of the ancient South Arabian languages. As far as we know, they were not spoken in northern Arabia. Semantics is funny. For example, think about what happens when I say, "Don't think about elephants." The transitive property states that if A equals B and B equals C, then A must equal C. So if a half Dutch-speaking, half French-speaking land equals Belgium, and a half Dutch-speaking, half French-speaking land also equals the island of St. Martin in the Caribbean, then we would expect St. Martin to be Belgium. But unfortunately, it's not. Or fortunately? There are no words in English that feature three of the same letter consecutively, but somehow George Lucas thought this was acceptable. Thank you, George. Lithuanian is often considered the most conservative living language of the Indo-European family in regards to the Proto-Indo-European language. But interestingly, in the parliamentary election in Lithuania of October 2024, the center-left Social Democratic Party of Lithuania, led by Vilija Blinkevičiūtė, attained 52 of seats in the Seimas. They affiliate with the Party of European Socialists, and one of their junior partners, the Union of Democrats for Lithuania, affiliates with the European Green Party. In order to form a governing coalition, the LSDP and the DSVL had to partner with the fiscally center-left populist Daunov Neumannas party, which brought the coalition to 86 of the 141 seats of the Seimas. Current Prime Minister Gintautas Paluckas is the former chairman of the Social Democratic Party of Lithuania, which is surprising given the extremely conservative nature of the Lithuanian language. This Vietnamese word is uninteresting. It does not translate to bovine. And no, it's not a your mother joke, it just means spinach. If anyone ever tells you that you sound salty, respond Napimgi, which means I understand in the salt language of Papua New Guinea. Polish has over 80 verbs. People who are bilingual or more make up about 60% of the world's population. Assuming most people in that group are only bilingual and not polyglots, this means that the average person speaks about the golden ratio number of languages. The voiceless velar plosive is present in the Tasshalhit language. There is no evidence of Armenian ever having been spoken or written on the moon. Contrary to popular belief, you can eat a language. In fact, I just made a whole video on that topic that I'm quite proud of, that for some reason nobody watched. Please help me make my investments into this channel worth it. And lastly, but certainly not least, did you know Romanian is spoken